All right, good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of the Wallace Way. Hope everyone had a blessed holiday and a groovy time. It was some good sports on. I hope they got all the gifts they won. I hope they didn't watch Wonder Woman 84. Well, I guess it was okay. It wasn't the worst movie ever. But anyways, today's show, we have a distinguished brother by the name of Charles Sumpter. And this guy is just, like I said, he's a down-to-earth, groovy guy. He got his education from Union College and got his MBA from Catholic University. He then moved on to be a congressional fellowship, which we're going to chat about more. He then moved on to a distinguished career at a couple Big Five accounting firms. We all know him, Deloitte and a couple other ones. And now he's a board member of the SafeSpaceNova, a LGBTQ safe space for teens that we're going to really dig into a little later. So I want you guys to give a round of applause to the good brother. How are we doing today, sir?
We're doing all right, Wallace. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. And pardon the sun. It's a very sunny over here.
Yeah.
I could be on the beach. You never know.
Hey. You never know with these days now. These backgrounds.
Yeah, no doubt. So tell me a little bit about your background, like how you got started and everything.
So I'm originally from the Bronx, New York City, South Bronx, born and raised. Mm-hmm. My family is still there in the Bronx and in Harlem. And, went to school, upstate New York, Union College, as you mentioned.
Okay. And
I did a bachelor's in political science, but also in Mandarin Chinese. So I had the opportunity to go study abroad for a while. After that was done, did some backpacking through the Himalayas and Tibet, and came back, lost a lot of weight. So that's the way to do it.
Everybody, no more Peloton. Just backpack through the Himalayas.
Okay. That was the way to do it. That was my first time ever flying, was to China. So, 13 hours. So that was a kid from the Bronx. That was a big deal. And then I worked, did school, finished, graduated, and came down to the DC area. And I've been here ever since. Haven't left.
Awesome. So tell me about the congressional fellowship. That sounds super dope. Tell me about that.
Yeah. As a part of my program at Union, they did a sort of like a DC term abroad for political science majors. Mm-hmm. So I did that in 2006, and I got a fellowship with Congressman Charles Rangel from Harlem.
Lord, that brother's been around forever.
Exactly. So that was sort of like real life hitting you. My first day on Capitol Hill, I guess he had a congressional hearing, and all the senior staff were like running around the office. And so I come in the door, they're like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "I'm Charles. I'm the new fellow." And I'm like, "We need you to answer the phones. We need you to take care of this." And they all just ran out. Wow. And I'm like, "Okay, I don't even know where the bathrooms are." And so I did that, answered the phones, learned basically on the fire. And that's sort of been my experience since I've been here, having to kind of come in, assess the situation, and just really, really figure it out on the fly. And I did. And that was probably one of the greatest experiences of my life. I've always wanted to be involved in government politics, and that really was my intro into what that was like, seeing these folks up close, in your face. And Mr. Rangel was no joke, but he really cared.
Not that long.
Yeah,
being a joke at that point.
No, you can't. And he was just before he became chairman of the House Ways and Means, but he was the ranking member, or at least on his way to being chairman when the Democrats took over back then. And so that was just really an eye-opening experience, and it's one of the things I always refer to in my career, was really seeing how government worked. Right, going up in the Bronx, you didn't see it, you didn't know. No one cares about what you're doing.
Right.
But they really do, and they really are working. We're trying to work hard. Actually, his photos right over there when he signed when I left. So it's one of the things I really, really enjoyed and remember.
No, that's dope. I mean, like I saw that on your bio, and I was like, man, that is dope. That's something like that's almost bigger than a job. Like that's an experience. Like going to the Himalayas. That's an experience.
Yeah.
That's not you can't just. That's something you live. You can't just talk about. You got to live that. That's super dope. Now that is pretty dope. So you know what? Let's move on to SafeSpaceNova.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
it just I forgot where I came upon it, but it just jumped out at me, and it looked so dope and looked so helpful.
Yeah.
And I wanted to reach out. So tell me some more about that.
Sure. So SafeSpaceNova was actually sort of the dream of my husband. And we weren't husbands at that time. We had been together. This is about 5 years ago. So we got married last year. It'll be 15 years next month.
Wow! Congrats.
So this is a dream child of his. He grew up in the South and really didn't feel that he had a place to go. He was coming up, and so struggled with mental issues, suicide ideation, all those types of things. It didn't really have a space where he can talk to somebody about that. And so fast forward, he's gone to Howard. He's here. I come down for my term. And then I decided, well, I'm going to stay in D.C. And so once he finished his time at Howard, went on the American, and he kept talking about something. He wanted to create this safe space. He wanted to create a place like a drop-in center. And I said, listen, you either going to talk, you're going to do it, or you're going to stop talking. So how are you going to do this?
Right.
And so he put together some documentation, what his goals were, his plans. And he asked me if I would sit on the board of directors with him to help him flesh it out. And a few of us did. And it was born in March of 2016, that concept. And so there's similar organizations in the DMV, mostly in DC, like Smile. I don't know if you've heard of them. And, so they are like maybe 20 years ahead of where we are right now, where they actually have a space, a center where kids can go. And they do a lot of work with, housing type work for LGBT plus youth. And so there was nothing going on that way in Northern Virginia. So if you were a youth in Nova, Alexandria, Annandale, Fairfax County, you had nowhere to go. You either had to go to D.C., which means you had to probably drive. If you were out in Loudoun County, how do you get to the metro? Like, how are you getting to these services? How are you able to meet other youth like you? And so there was a void. And so he formed the organization. I joined him. And ever since then, we have just been paving the way, trying to get the word out, trying to get support from other organizations, engaging with schools, gay straight alliances, PFLAG, which is an organization for parents who have LGBTQ youth and don't know what to do. So we became sort of that go-between in Nova for those types of organizations and for those kids. And the experience has been so rewarding. And the kids came, like there was a need clearly because, they showed up. And so we do social activities, layers of tag. This is all prior to COVID. Different activities, social events, movie nights, pizza nights, proms. We sponsor proms here in Northern Virginia. And it's really, really been sort of that first phase, which was that social activity programming. We're now moving into a more of a programs directed space where you talked about in the education piece. And we're now building out the thick set program. We're going to start building out therapy services. And this is all done for free, right? This is all volunteers. None of us takes a paycheck. There's a staff of about 8 volunteers that he has, the founder, Jordan Costin. And so he manages that team. And then we are on the board of directors. So we have about 6 of us who help, either raise funds, do programs that give exposure to what we do. And so the support from the community has been great over the last 5 years. And so I'm excited about what 2021 is going to do because we got some planned. So
it sounds super dope. I was doing some research on it, and some of these stats from the CDC for LGBTQ teens is just insane. It said 34% were bullied. 28% were bullied electronically. And they did have some tidbits of working with school systems and trying to find safe spaces. That was a line that they had in it. So that was just I didn't know it was that intense. and the suicide numbers are just insane.
It's insane. These numbers are off the charts, and a lot of folks sometimes, particularly in schools, might not know, like resource counselors or guidance counselors, may not know how to handle it, right? How to deal with that. How do you talk to someone who's that close to wanting to take their lives?
Right.
And being bullied and every single day constantly going through that. I never felt that growing up. I didn't have that experience, but Jordan did. And I see it, and I've definitely seen it ever since I got more involved in this space in terms of this type of advocacy. It's really pervasive, and so this seeks to kind of help a bit, right? Is it going to alleviate all of the social ills? No, but what it will do is give youth an option to say, there are other youth like me in my region. Let me reach out to them. Let me talk to them. Let me talk to someone who might have been through something like this and who made it to the other side. And so that's something that we really, really focus on, giving them the space to be themselves and to really be able to express themselves, whether it's through writing. Some of our youth have published pieces in like local papers, or local newspapers like The Blade. And so that's been an avenue for them to kind of express themselves and see that they have something to offer to society and to the world, and we need to let them do that. We need to hear them.
Yeah. So moving forward with 2021, of course, COVID has just thrown a wrench in just the whole game. I mean,
it's like, really? It was hard enough, right?
Right. Now it's just like, it's insane. But so what type of programs will you guys be planning for next year, knowing that everything probably won't be in person till at least much later, summertime, if that, you know what I mean?
Right. What we're looking at, and what we do, we pulse the youth in our program. And just before I get there, we have something called a student ambassador program. And so we have youth at different schools who are affiliated with us. They sort of drive what it is they want to do. And they want to get out and start doing events again. And so what we've talked about for 2021 is, are there outdoor type of activities, whether it be hiking, going outdoors, that can alleviate any risk. So we're looking at that now. Obviously, we just want to be safe. So we have insurance in case anything happens, but we're waiting for that. So we're still pushing sort of the virtual events for now. But we are listening, and we're sort of gathering ideas of potential things that are more that are safer for them to do. So we're looking at that. The board's looking at that. And so we're kind of making a decision once this vaccine gets out there, who's getting it, how widespread is it. We'll reevaluate what that looks like. So we're still focused on the virtual programming, one being the sexual education, the other being how do you advocate for yourself to legislators, to your mayor, city council. How do you do that? How do you become the best advocate? Because you're the best advocate for yourself. No one else can do that for you. They can help, but you know what your own lived experiences are. And so we have some folks lined up to start doing those trainings sessions. And so that's what we've planned for right now, at least until about March. Along with like escape room. We've done that the first time last month in November, and they loved it.
What is an escape room?
Escape room is where, prior to COVID, you can go. There's one in DC, one in Alexandria too. There are a couple places around the country, and you go into a room and you have clues. You're locked into a room, and it could be a themed room. Jurassic Park is an example, and you have to find these clues in order to break out of the room. They have done that virtually now, and so you can do it virtually with a bunch of group of people, adults too. I've done it, before myself. And you can go in there and you can explore the room. You can talk to each other on the side, chat, and then figure out what those clues are to move you through to the next level. So that was a big hit.
Yeah, that's dope.
It was amazing. It was a movie too. There's 2 movies about it. And so we'll keep doing those. We'll keep doing like the Netflix nights. We'll keep doing the virtual laser tags, and we'll keep doing those types of things for the time being.
Right.
What we're thinking about also is some of our youth talked about our social media and wanting to help fix that because they didn't think it was reaching as many people. Right? They got their group, but there's others that we could be talking to and touching. And so they are putting together a plan of action on how to reform SafeSpaceNova social media experience, if you would, to reach, target other kids, bring them in there. So we're letting them really drive the stuff and really see that they can make things better the way they want it to, and really, really stand up and be leaders in their own communities. So
sounds like a lot of empowering.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that's a buzzword, but that's the real. Like you find the great organizations, rather it be sports, rather it be government, whatever. When you empower people, you give them such a strength and the ability to, toss things on the wall and see what sticks and kind of flow with it,
it's not always us having the answers. Sometimes the answers come from others and within, and we listen to them. So
no doubt. So now that we have a new administration, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard, it was a big election.
I think you won a couple of times.
I like following you because you come with you be dropping some heat, man. I'll be like, yo. Be like, yo, chill.
Yeah, I know. I mean, sometimes it's gets you going,
It's it's social media is a very weird space. Speaking of space, it's a unique space, man. It's like everyone is a expert and no one knows anything.
Right.
It's powerful. There's no doubt about power in social media. So
and it's interesting to call those people out who know nothing. And I'm like, okay, well, you clearly haven't worked on the Hill, or you clearly don't pay. Like, how do you gonna tell me what the house should do?
Right. And then it's almost like when you do that, you almost probably gotta look at yourself sometimes like, why am I even doing? Like, why?
Yeah.
I'm just it's like playing chess with a pigeon, right?
Right.
So now that we have a new administration, what are a couple things you want them to do to kind of galvanize this you know what I mean? Like, because I know the last administration, I read, I don't know the full details, but they rolled back a couple provisions in the community. So what are some things you want the new administration to kind of advocate?
They definitely, first, like out of the gate, they need to pass the Equality Act, which has been sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk for however many months at this point. And that really sets the tone at the baseline level that you can't discriminate against someone based upon their sexual orientation. And that includes housing, employment, whether they want to serve in the military. None of those things shouldn't be prohibited just because you identify with the community. And so that needs to be passed immediately. And that will do a lot on a policy level to address some of those issues we have.
Okay.
Another thing would be to roll back what this administration has done with regard to transgender persons serving in the military.
Okay.
That needs to be looked at again and reversed because that's ridiculous. Anyone who desires to serve their country, whether they are transgender or cisgendered male or cisgendered female, which means that's the gender you were born and how you identify as, they should be able to serve in the military if they want to. And the country should allow that and should respect that. And that needs to be reversed. There are also issues when it comes to housing and discrimination for trans folks who want to stay in the type of, let's say they're in a shelter, per se, and they identify as a male, identify as a female. They would like to stay in the shelter that's their sex, that's their gender. And that was rolled back by the Housing and Urban Development Agency under Secretary Ben Carson. So there's little things like that don't get a lot of attention, but that to its core hurts a community. And that needs to be reversed. And President Obama prior had put the executive order in that allowed those folks to stay in a shelter that they identify with, because that causes a lot of harm.
Right.
And as you've seen,
So let me try. So the beef is if you identify as a woman, they would send you to a man's homeless camp.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that creates some problems.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That creates issues. And so at a government perspective, at a policy level, that needs to be looked at again. And as I was going to say, that creates long-term harm for people. And that needs to be looked at. You've seen it over the past couple of years, the many deaths from trans women, particularly of color. They're killed, locally, and no one talks about it.
Yeah, that's something that's kind of bubbling under the surface.
Yeah.
And they don't know about the connections to it, but it has been a lot that has. Now, so like, are those things coming from like a different perspective? Are those things based off of like someone hooking up and not knowing per se, and they get mad? Could that play a role sometimes? Like,
there's been some of that. So it's in the legal profession that's an argument that they have used as defense that they've used sometimes to say, I forget what it's called. It's like this in the spirit of the moment. There's a legal terminology for it where they lost their mind for a second because they were upset and they did this.
Okay.
Regardless, that's still, that's a crime. And it's not always that way. It's a good argument to use. And some have gotten off with that, others have not. And so that's one thing. But then just plain out killing on the street. Someone's walking to get food, and they are killed. Someone's going to visit their family's house, and they were targeted on the street corner, and they were killed. So those things all play into that. But it's also discrimination, which within the criminal justice system, because those folks who are killed they rarely get the justice that they deserve because of that argument. Sometimes it comes up, and so that's just a something to keep working through, and it's a challenge that they have to face. And together, when we work with them, we can help them get through that and implement policies that see trans women of color as people.
Sure.
As people, as who they are. They're humans. And so that's a uphill battle. And I can't even begin to say I understand what it's like to live that experience. I have my own experience, but we work as an ally. And if we can help those folks, I know we focus on youth, where this is coming up. I mean, these folks are teenagers, 20, 21. Those are some challenges, and it's really sad. I'm happy. I'm encouraged that this administration is talking about trans lives, and so that's important. That's a start. Now, how do you back that up with additional policy initiatives, whether it's in healthcare, access to doctors? There are a lot of barriers that exist that pop up when trans folks and other folks from marginalized communities need services.
Sure.
Oh, well, what about this? Or what about your birth certificate? Or what, these types of things pop up, and they are a challenge.
No, that's a very interesting angle. I know it's, like I said, America, all of us, we sometimes are very slow to adapt to certain things. And I do see people getting better and learning.
Yeah.
But it's slow. I mean, you gotta think. I mean, interracial marriages were just, like,
yeah. I mean, come on.
That are like, oh God, it's hard to think there was separate water fountains.
Yeah.
But that hasn't happened that long ago in the span of history.
No.
So it's really hard for if I told my nephew that, like, they just wouldn't. It's unfathomable. They can't see it, but it happened, and
it happened
in a lifetime. So no, that's awesome, man. So that is, Safe Space is definitely doing some dope things, man, and anything that the Wallace Way can do to help promote it and projects and anything, because it's doing some good people are doing some good work and marginalized community, and we all building each other up. Like you said, the last couple of years have been very divisive in the world, not just America, but in the world, and hopefully this is a time of healing, and hopefully this is a time of people, you don't have to agree with everybody.
No.
I don't, hey,
No.
you're a Giants fan. I don't have to agree with you, but we
You're
can
right.
have a civil conversation.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I get that all the time being out here. People are like, what are you doing out here? I said, man, we had a couple of good years. We could sit back and let some others win a couple Super Bowls. We'll see.
Sure, no doubt. So, tell me about growing up in the Bronx, man. Like, how was that? Because the Bronx is the Bronx. Out of all the boroughs or the people I know from New York, they're like, man, the Bronx is like it's almost like in its own world in a way.
Yeah, it really is. What I would say is I had a good family who really and I had a big family. My grandmother had 9 kids, and my mother was the first of those 9. So I had uncles and aunts, and who were all older than me, so they always looked out, when you were coming up, and so we had a good family who focused on our well-being, on education, going to school, doing what you're supposed to do. And I'm only the second person in my immediate family to go to college. And so and then there's been other, like my sisters in school, my cousins, so they're all doing it now.
Right.
And so there was a big emphasis on that. But the Bronx, was an experience. But I focused on what I needed to do.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to get out, not because it was so, that I experienced it being so bad. Right. I think a lot of that's TV and mythology. And was it bad in the 70s and 80s? Yeah, I was a kid. I was born in 85. So I didn't see everything that was there before. Mm-hmm. It was still getting its way when I was coming up. I don't know if it's receded now. What I'm seeing now, things seem to be changing a bit, going back, a lot more violence. But there were places of hope. There were good people. There were good families. You had neighbors, and people cared about their community where I lived. And so I always look back on that and say I didn't have a bad coming up. There were some challenges always. Everyone has those. But I had a good family who stayed in my life, who devoted their time and energy into me succeeding.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that.
No doubt. I went to Yankee Stadium about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And it's literally like right in the hood. Like it's not like surrounding this area. It's like the hood, Yankee Stadium, the hood.
And the hood goes on.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, we here now, so we gotta go.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful stadium, and
it
was all love. I just was so surprised, like it was located like right there.
I mean, it was talk about years ago, going to Manhattan somewhere, right? And it never did, and they rebuilt it, right? Because that's not the one that was there when I grew up, and even the one I knew was not the one was back then. But it's still there. They redid it, so I imagine staying there for a lot longer. But New York City is so, people. Jordan's he's from the South, from Atlanta, so just to see the amount of diversity when he would visit the family, go with me to New York. He'd be like, you got this types of food on every corner. I'm like, you want Chinese today? You want this today? You want Spanish food? It's all right there. And so that was a different experience for him. And then coming to DC, which was about 10 times, in terms of the craziness and diversity, it's a little bit lower, but it's still, DC has its own.
It has its pockets.
It has its pockets, yeah.
Yeah, DC, it's funny because, like, you said you got down here in, 2005, you said?
I was here in 2006.
2006, yeah. Mm-hmm. Even from then to now, it has flipped.
Oh, yeah.
Because back in, 05, it was just, I don't know. I just don't know what people do nowadays. Like, where do they go? Like, we had, super clubs, massive clubs. So, H2O, you had, Love.
Yeah.
Fur. But now, what do these people just go to bars? Like, I don't know. That's kind of whack.
They're all going. They're all. I sit on the board of another organization called Gay Professional Men of Color. Mm-hmm. We had a sort of a virtual meeting about where have all the clubs gone.
It was like 2000s up to like 2007.
Yeah.
It was such a beautiful time. And then something happened. I don't know if economically, I guess, well, even 2008 was this. So maybe economically, it just kind of shut down.
Yeah.
I just don't know what
I think a piece of it, and also those areas also got redeveloped, some of it. So they were in some shady spot sometime, or less desirable. I lived in Southwest when I first came to DC on the waterfront, and so
right.
Love is right there. There's another one, I think Zanzibar. I can't remember the name of it.
It was H2O in Zanzibar.
Exactly, that's right. And so when that became the Southwest waterfront, exactly. They had to go.
That nasty G word, gentrification. It be like it literally. It's like the core of everything,
Yeah.
And no, you're right. So I went down to the waterfront maybe last year. We was just like, let's just drive down there. It wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
You can just go outside and just drive and go places.
Yeah.
And you couldn't even find parking. Like literally, I drove around for like 45 minutes, and it's like, I'm just going home. Like,
it's not worth it.
It takes less time to go home than to find parking.
Right, than to find parking. That's out of control.
So, that's awesome. Well, listen, Mr. Sumpter, I want to let you get going. You got a busy day. It's just a pleasure speaking with you. I'm a huge fan of SafeSpaceNova.
Thank you.
Whatever the Wildest Way can do to promote and
absolutely
get out your projects and your programs and all that, because it's a beautiful thing. Definitely look forward to working with you and the organization some more. And thank you so much. You want to plug anything coming out? Anything?
No, we just want to thank you for
what?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be able to get today. I definitely appreciate it, and definitely look forward to the partnership. I do want to give a shout out to the organization All Trans Lives Matter. They gave us a donation this morning, and we were really, really appreciative of that. And that's how we got to support one another. And so I definitely want to thank them for that today. So thank you again.
Dope, man. Awesome. Well, listen, everybody have a good New Year's.
Yes.
We're going to be off till like the 5th. And then we're going to get it popping again with more shows.
All right.
Premium content for all the people out there. So everyone have a safe New Year's, and no champagne, just some Martinelli sparkling cider. Okay? And matter of fact, if Martinelli, if you want a sponsorship, please.
I know that's right.
Good. Peace.
All right, man. Bye.